Hey, welcome back. What an interesting time to be a Yu-Gi-Oh player in Master Duel. We are getting Tearlaments on Monday, so there are a lot of videos coming here for the Tearlament theme. Tonight is another video, and then tomorrow evening I have another cool video for you where I will show you which decks and cards specifically you can use to counter Tearlaments. Later this day there will be a video where I will discuss the ban list Tearlament got before their release and ask the question or answer the question: is it already dead? Is it already not good enough? Can it compete with the other decks? What happened? Was there like a too extreme ban list? We will look at this later in the day, and then on Monday of course there will be an opening video, there will be a should you buy this pack kind of video, and then some more videos concerning the Tearlament deck. What I want to do with you now is to show you some cards that you can use in your Tearlament deck, or that will be used in your Tearlament deck. And of course we know this because the deck was already out in the TCG and OCG for a while. Both formats are not really playing it anymore, though in the OCG it remains to be seen if that is the case, as it was hit now 2 times on the ban list and seems to be still kind of there. But yeah, we will have to see. So these cards are like staples or must-haves for your Tearlament deck. There are cards that are more must-have and are less must-have, and I will go over each of them and tell you which are the important ones. So let's start right here with the Herald of the Orange Light, which in preparation for Tearlaments got hit to 1. This is because you can use this to negate a monster effect of your opponent, and you can send one, or you have to basically, it's good in the Tearlament deck, but otherwise it's a pretty expensive cost. You can send one other fairy monster from your hand to the graveyard. This you would use to send your Ishizu cards, the 4 here, to the graveyard, which then can activate their effect. Of course, Mudora and Keldo can shuffle you cards into your deck, your Tearlament cards that went to the graveyard, then you fusion summoned. You can go get them back into the deck. And of course the millers, which basically enable your whole Tearlament game plan. They shuffle or they mill your Tearlament names to the graveyard, thereby activating their effect in the graveyard to fusion summon and build your board. So this works pretty good together. So Herald of the Orange Light, though it is at 1, is still, I think, an auto include. It's a rare, so that's pretty good. Diviner of the Herald, this is a card that I would be a bit on the back foot when crafting this. I think in the beginning will be run a lot in the deck, and I think in the later portions of the Tearlament meta, when other cards like the Bestials come, I think this will be run a bit less, though it's still a cool card, and if you have it, then just go for it. You can normal or special summon, of course, this card, and if that is the case, you can send one fairy monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, which is pretty cool because obviously again you can send these guys and therefore start your chain. So you could normal summon this, then you could send an Agido or Kelbeck, and then just mill 5 and then hit your Tearlament names and start your fusion plays on your turn. So this is pretty good. Also, you can increase this level by that monster's level, which in this case would be 4, making this a level 6 monster, and this is the reason why Baron de Fleur is here in the extra deck, because together with another level 4 monster, you can then synchro summon into Baron, which is obviously a pretty good end board monster. So I would say do not like autocraft this card. There are other cards that you basically need to autocraft for the Tearlament meta, for the Tearlament deck. I think this deck can work without it, though I think in the beginning you will see a lot of deck lists running this card, and it's a good card, so you can basically not go really wrong with it, but I am not quite sure if I will craft it in the beginning. There are other priorities here that I will focus on. The King of the Swamp is the replacement for Kit Carlos once this will get banned. So I think as we have it at 1 right now, and we will talk in the video later today about the bans to Tearlaments and the limitations, I think this is a card that's not important right now, but could be important later on, because you will need, if they ban Kit Carlos, which I think they will do later on in the format, then you will need this to replace the Kit Carlos to end on your Rule Carlos, which is your endboard monster, but more to that later in the next video. Then we have Fairy Tail Snow. This is a pretty good card that maybe will get banned here in the future. I don't know. You can, if you don't know the card, you can choose 7 cards from your hand or graveyard, banish them, and then summon this card to the field and then flip a monster face down. And as you are milling a lot of cards to your graveyard, this is a pretty good card that you can activate to gain an advantage, to push for lethal, or maybe flip an important monster on your opponent's field face down so they cannot make any more plays. For example, let's just imagine your sprite enemy plays a level 2 monster, you flip the level 2 monster down, and then they cannot, because they already used their normal summon, they cannot special summon their sprite monsters from hand, for example. So this is a pretty good card. I wouldn't say that you need to craft this, but if you have it like I do, you can put it in. But there are other cards that you need to craft for this archetype. This is not one of these, but also a pretty strong card in the deck. Then now come the Ishizu cards. If you do not already have them, get them, you need them. These are need to craft cards. You need 2 of these, 2 of this, 2 of this, and 3 of the Mudora, and you will play the whole package because these are the strongest card in the deck. These are the cards that made the deck tier 0. And these are the cards that got hit in the TCG and OCG to kill the deck. Also, the tier element names were also hit. They needed to hit a lot of cards to stop this deck because it is that strong. But these are the main, or one of the main reasons that this deck is as strong as it is. And we will get this deck with its basically full power version. Concerning, of course, the limitations, which we will talk about later. So you get 2 Kaldos, 3 Mudoras, 2 Kalbaks, and 2 Agidos. This is like the engine of the deck. You need this to run the deck. Another good card is Foolish Burial, which is also a staple card. So you're crafting this card, you will be able to use it in a lot of other decks. This is, of course, because you can send 1 monster from your deck to the graveyard. You could send your Ishizu cards, but you can also send Tearlament cards, which then start your plays. Then you can fusion summon. This basically can start your whole play line. So this is a really good and important card. And I think crafting these, you cannot really go wrong because you will use this in many decks. It's a good staple card, so you can safely go for it. Same goes for Terraforming. Of course, we have the Tearlament field spell at 1. So we need more consistency, or we want more consistency to get to the field spell. This is basically another Tearlament field spell, as you will. Of course, you can get ashed here by using this card, but that's quite alright. You will put this basically in every Tearlament list. This is the staple card. Go and craft this. You will need this in every deck that has a strong field spell, and there are a lot of good decks coming in the future who also have good field spell cards. So having 1 Terraforming, you cannot go wrong with that. Go and craft it. Then we have Instant Fusion, which enables the Tearlament strategy to instant fuse into Kid Kalos, and Kid Kalos can then start a lot of other plays. Kid Kalos is a very central monster, and you can see that by the TCG and OCG banning the card and therefore killing the deck. It's that strong of a card. And Instant Fusion allows you for just 1000 LP to special summon the Kid Kalos, and then you can make your plays, you can start your plays, and that is pretty strong. I would think as long as Kid Kalos is allowed and as long as this card is in the game, maybe this will get banished, who knows, to make the deck more weaker. But as long as both of them are here, you will basically play this in every list, so you can go and craft it and feel pretty good about it. And this is a candidate, maybe a candidate to get banned in the future, so then you would get your ultra rare crafting coins back. So Triple Tactics Talents is not really a must-have in this deck, but I would recommend it because Tearlament will always do something in your main phase. So then this will enable you to use Triple Tactics Talent. You can rip a card from their hand, you can draw 2 cards, you can take one of their maybe endboard fusion monsters, Dragostapelia, their Chimera, their Rule Kalos, their Kid Kalos, maybe their Zeus or something like that. So this is pretty strong in the meta, one of the best hand traps, if you will, in the meta. And this is also a pretty safe craft because in a lot of formats this is a good card. You will be able to use this in the future even if you're not playing Tearlaments anymore. So this is a good suggestion if you are still asking yourself what do you want to craft. I think you can put 3 of these into your Tearlaments deck and be pretty fine with it. Then, oh, and as I see this now, I am realizing that I have missed a card. that is also pretty important. That is super polymerization. This you can use to break your opponent's boards. You can use the Mud Dragon of the Swamp for this card. Unfortunately, there is a really strong card missing right now, Garura, Wings of Resonating Life, which is a TCG exclusive fusion monster and would allow you to be even better or have even more opportunities to break your opponent's board with super polymerization. So these two together can work quite well to break your opponent's Tearlament's board and yeah, fusion into a Mud Dragon, or maybe you can also use this to fuse into, let's say, a Dragostapelia or something else using your opponent's Dragostapelia and then one of your dark monsters. So this is pretty good to break your opponent's board, especially if they are playing Tearlaments, because you have a lot of fusion monsters in your extra deck. So, as I already said it, Mud Dragon of the Swamp is the target that you want to fuse in with super polymerization, as it needs two monsters with the same attribute but different types, so you can use your opponent's Tearlament monsters. And then your opponent cannot target this card or monsters on the field with the same attribute as this card's with card effects. Obviously, this is a water monster, but you can also change this. A lot of Tearlament cards are water, but there are also some dark monsters. So, for example, your Dragostapelia that you can make on the board, or your Chimera. These are dark, so you could change this type to protect your dark monsters. This is why this is a pretty good card and a safe craft for the Tearlament strategy. A lot of Tearlament decks were also running the El Shaddol package. El Shaddol Winder is like the boss monster that you want to fuse into. Thereby your opponent can only special summon once per turn, which if he cannot like break your Shaddol Winder, maybe with a super poly or another spell or trap, or maybe a monster, who knows, then he is in big trouble because he basically cannot play the game. Assuming he's not a trap deck player or something like this. But this also locks your opponents out from using their Tearlament cards and therefore is pretty strong. I wouldn't say that this is a must craft, because you can definitely run Tearlament versions without this card. So this is only a suggestion. Obviously, you would put in a lot of the El Shaddol other cards here, the fusion card and other monsters, to make this viable. But we will see how good this will be. I think there will be a lot of lists running this package. Dragostapelia is like the card that was in every Tearlament deck, because you can pretty easily fuse into this, for example with your Kid Colors, which is a fusion monster, and then one other dark monster. And your Tearlament cards are also dark monsters. Some of them are aqua monsters, water monsters, but they are also dark monsters. So it's pretty easy to get into Dragostapelia, and this is a pretty strong card, as it has a lot of stats and is also per quick effect able to target one of your opponent's face up monsters, put a counter on it, and then negate the activated effects of this monster. Note also that when you put a counter on your opponent's monsters, it level becomes level 1 as long as it has a predator counter on it. So if your opponent plays Pride and they play like normal summon, let's say a level 2 monster, and you put a counter on this monster, then it's a level 1 monster, and your opponent cannot or no longer use his sprite monsters from hand, because he needs level 2 monsters on the field, not level 1. So this super safe craft. It's also super rare, so just go for it. Another card that was often seen in the Tearlament extra deck is Guardian Chimera. Obviously, this is a strong generic fusion monster. You need 3 monsters with different names, so you can basically play this in every fusion deck. Because this is not really hard to make, and then this can net you a lot of advantages, as if you use 2 monsters from the field, you could destroy 2 cards on your opponent's field, or if you use 2 monsters from your hand, you then can draw 2 cards and gain more advantage. I would say this is it's pretty hard. I don't think you need this card in the extra deck, but it's a pretty solid, pretty good card in the extra deck, and you will see a lot of lists running that. Though sad, if you do not have the ultra rare points and have already crafted the more important ones that I will show you in a moment, yeah, then you will be fine without the Guardian Chimera, but it's a pretty good card, and you cannot really go wrong with crafting this. Also, this is used in the Branded Despia strategy, so you have it for the Branded Despia strategy if you want to play it, which will also get support in the future. Maybe you already have it. Pretty good card in the extra deck of Tearlaments. Then I already talked about this Baron de Fleur. Basically makes more sense if you have this, because this is a tuner. So playing this maybe 3 times in your deck, then you should put a Baron in. Otherwise, if you do not have the Divine of Herald in the deck, you don't need the Baron. So that is that. And now comes one of the most important cards. This you must craft for your extra deck, because this you can make with 2 level 4 monsters, which is pretty easy for you. And while this has material attached, all water monsters you control gain 500 attack. These are your Tearlament monsters, that is quite strong, but the most important thing is down here. Once per turn quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card. Your opponent cannot activate any card effects in their graveyard this turn, though you have 2 materials, so you can activate this 2 times. This basically says your opponent cannot use his Tearlament strategy because he cannot use the graveyard. This is the most important extra deck monster when you play against other Tearlament players, as this can lock your opponent out of playing his turn, the game, for basically 2 turns, your turn and then his turn, or his turn and your next turn, depending on what you use here or when you use it. This is super important. This is a staple. You need this. Then we have Baguska, which you probably already have. Of course, this is a good basic or like staple XYZ monster. If you have problems on the board or you need to buy time, you can make this with 2 level 4 monsters, which is pretty easy. Then this can change everything into defense position, negating its effects, and you can buy yourself some time to maybe draw into better cards that you are missing right now. Really good staple, super rare, so go and put it in. Another staple Tearlament cards is the Time Thief Redoer. You may not have seen this before because it isn't played in a lot of other decks, but I think it's a pretty safe craft as long as Tearlament is around. You can also do this, and I really love this card. It's such a cool card. Like, the artwork is cool and the effect is also pretty cool. You can make this with 2 level 4 monsters, and once per turn during the standby phase, you can attach the top card of your opponent's deck to this card as material. That's quite cool because you can like see what your opponent is playing and maybe get an important card. And then quick effect, you can detach up to 3 different types of materials from this card and then apply the following effect. If you detach monster, you can banish this card until the end phase, so you can basically save this card when your board gets wiped. If you detach a spell card, you can draw a card, which is pretty insane. And if you detach a trap, you can place 1 face-up card your opponent controls on the top of the deck of your opponent, which is also super strong. Obviously, you are making this with monsters, so the bottom effects are not that irrelevant, but in theory, if you take 1 card from your opponent's deck in the standby phase and attach this, you can get a spell card, can get a trapped card, and then also are able to use these strong effects. But of course, the important part is that you can make this with your Tearlament monsters, and then you can use the monster effect here, detaching your Tearlaments from this card to the graveyard, and then their effect will activate in the graveyard and allow you to go on and make your plays. And this is the reason why this card is such a good card. But as I already said, also on your opponent's turn, you can attach 1 card from your opponent's deck to this monster, and then maybe you're also able to use these strong effects here. This is a staple. You can craft this. You will put this basically in every Tearlament list. An awesome card. Then, of course, once you are running XYZ cards in your extra deck, you are running Zeus. Nothing to say here. You could also obviously run it together with the Downard package. It's always hard to find this card. It's the Downard Magician, but I guess you already know what I'm searching here. This is for making Zeus a 4 material card. As you attack with any XYZ monster, then overlay the Downard and then overlay into the Zeus, and then the Zeus has 4 materials, so it is able to use its effect to destroy the whole board besides itself 2 times, also in the same chain, by the way. This is a super good monster. You will put this in every Tearlament list, and this is also such a generic staple card, so go ahead, craft this if you do not already have it. It's just awesome. Then there are a lot of other staples which I do not want to go over in such detail. Obviously, IP Masquerena is in here. Underworld Goddess of the Closed World was in a lot of lists. This year, the Nightmare Unicorn is not that common in the extra deck of Tearlaments. It's also strong. You can put it in here if you have it, but if you do not have it, you can just craft it, put it in here. It's Nightmare Unicorn. You basically use it in nearly every deck, or every deck that works with link cards. These are such staple cards that you can safely craft these, and even if you do not end up using them in the Tearlament deck or do not like them in your deck, then just put them out. You will have to use them in the future, so it's absolutely alright. And then we have Sprite Elf, which most of you probably already have if you played the Sprite package. This is quite awesome because you can revive your Tearlament cards from the graveyard and then obviously work with them on the field, get them back to the graveyard, use their effect, and also Sprite Elf is just such a strong monster. You definitely will put it in here, and I would say also a pretty safe craft if you do not have it already for the Tearlament strategy. And then this was used sometimes in the lists, in the Tearlament list. This is also a very strong boss monster. If it weren't for the new structure deck where this card is in and you can basically get it for 500 gems, I would not say go craft this card because you do not need it in the extra deck. But it's a good card in the Tearlament extra deck and you can get it for 500 gems with the structure deck, so you might as well go for it. I think it's not a big loss, but obviously first use your gems to open the Tearlaments pack and get all the Tearlaments card. I am very interested in seeing which rarities they get because obviously, like, I would have expected the field spell to be an ultra rare, but it is at 1, so maybe it isn't an ultra rare. I am really looking forward to Monday and seeing what rarities we will see there. So that is basically it. I think these cards are considered more or less, as already detailed with every card, staple cards in the Tearlament deck, so go right ahead, get them if you do not already have them. We will talk about deck lists come Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday. I will have to see when I will get it done. As I already said, later this day or tonight there will be another video where I will discuss, is Tearlament still viable with the ban list, because let's be real, it got hit really hard, and I will talk about this in a separate video. We will look at the OCG and see what happened over there. That's maybe super interesting for a lot of you who only play Master Duel. I hope you liked the video. Please let me know in the comments. Please subscribe to my channel if you like my content. This helps a lot, and give the video a thumbs up. We will see each other later in the day. Until then, bye.